Hello everybody, my name is Daulton Nelson and today I'd like to give my thoughts on a game I just beat. That game being Last Word for the PC. Last Word is an RPG developed by 12 Tiles and published by Daulton. Back in college, I won a competition in class. The reward was a neat little humble bundle that I never ended up touching. The bundle included a couple of items, of which had 3 RPG Maker games all by different developers under the same publisher. Daulton is a smaller publisher that releases a good output of titles. Some of the titles they've published include bullet hells, puzzle games, and RPGs. Now, the 3 specific RPGs I got from them all seem to have been made in RPG Maker, and I think that's the big reason I haven't played any of them yet, but I'm changing that. And the first RPG I played in the pack, Last Word, offered a pretty great and interesting experience. Last Word is an RPG where you play as Whitty Gawship, a high-class photographer invited to the Chatter's mansion to preview the newest invention by Professor Chatters. However, you aren't the only one invited to this unveiling party. Trapped in the same rooms with you are several aristocrats skilled in the art of conversation. In order to find out what's going on and advance the night, you need to win these conversations by getting the last word in on conversation, rendering the person you're talking to speechless and beholden to your whims. Right off the bat, this is a very cool concept for an RPG for me, as the typical battles seen in this genre are that of the spoken word. And developer 12 Tiles does a great job writing some compelling dialogue to keep you on the edge of your seat. The whole story is wrapped in this clue-like mystery that you have to figure out piece by piece. Meanwhile, their cast of characters are diverse and interesting. With Whitty are a timid, inexperienced heir, a suave, smooth-talking boxer, a wine-enthused conversationalist, a cutthroat military mom, and an immovable, hardline general. Each have beautiful character portraits, and are associated with a specific color, making the cast seriously memorable. The game itself is almost a theatrical one-room setup, where the whole cast is confined in this mansion and can't leave. As such, there aren't really any changes to the scenery from the start of the game, which is okay. 12 Tiles remedies this by showing off great environment design, putting little details here and there that you can interact with. And all of this is made with some great sprite work that reminds me of Undertale, despite Last Word coming out before it. The soundtrack of the game also helps its mystery-laden atmosphere. Lots of dark, moody cuts set the mood, but it can also have some playful tracks to keep things from getting too heavy. As for the gameplay itself, your primary method of action will be to talk to everybody in the mansion to find out what is going on, and convince them to bend toward your agenda. There's a couple ways this translates to gameplay. First are the key topics you learn throughout the night. These topics are things like Chatter's history, or about his new invention. Once you have a key topic unlocked, it will start at level 1. You level the topic up by gossiping with the other aristocrats in the mansion until one of them lets on some new information. Then from there you do a round of gossiping again until you can't find out anything further. Last Word is divided into chapters, and to clear a chapter, you have to level up a main topic enough so that you can convince whoever it is to help you advance the night. Aside from key topics, there is also partaking in discourse. Discourse is the closest thing Last Word has to a standard RPG battle. In these battles, you must overwhelm your opponent enough until you get the last word in. These battles themselves feel a bit rigid, but their complicated systems, combined with any action accomplishing 2 things at once, makes discourse very interesting to play through. Let's start at the bottom. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a halved meter with pegs on each side. On the ends are win and lose. You'll also see a pin on one of the pegs. This is where the conversation is at currently for you. Your goal is to move the pin to the win position of the meter. To do this, you have to work with a couple systems. First is power. Power actions will give you red power energy, and can move the conversation forward slightly depending on which action you pick. You can use this power to generate tact. Tact is represented by green energy, and the amount of tact you generate is based on how much power energy you spent to get it. Finally, aggressive actions will move the conversation forward more significantly than the power actions do, but will spend your tact energy. Above all this, You also have to pay attention to you and your opponent's mood. You and your opponent will start out collected, but you can aggravate them more. To do this, each action you and your opponent use has a shape attached to it. There are 3 shapes in total: square, circle, and star. These shapes work in a rock, paper, scissors format, where one will always beat the other, and this is shown at the top each time you battle someone. To ruin your opponent's mood, you have to use the combative shaped move relative to the shape they picked last round. For example, to combat a circle, you must use a square move. When executed correctly, their mood meter above their head will increment, and your aggressive actions will have more effect. Of course, the same can happen to you, so it's best to be efficient in how you carry out the conversation. As you can tell, Discord is complicated, but I think that's what makes it so engaging for me. I like the fact that whatever I choose to do, it helps me, but can also potentially help my opponent. Thus, I have to be smart with each action I take. Unfortunately, I do think the discourse battling is brought down by 12 Tiles' reluctance to steer too far away from RPG tropes. Mainly, gaining experience and leveling up makes their way into Last Word, and they do more to hurt the game than to help. How leveling works is that you get it from engaging in discourse. Whether you win or lose, you get experience. Of course, you get more if you win. Then, when you enter discourse with an opponent, the relationship between your current level and theirs will determine where that pin at the bottom on that meter will start at. So, if you are at a lower level than your opponents, you'll start closer to losing the conversation. Conversely, you being a higher level will put you closer to winning discourse. I don't hate this idea, but I dislike how it influenced 12 Tiles' design approach when it comes to progression and balancing. From the progression standpoint, there are only 5 characters you can hold discourse with throughout the entire game, so you have to battle the same characters again and again to collect experience. The experience, by the way, is stored as a separate money currency you can get as you level up. You can use this stored experience to buy upgrades and abilities. This brings me to my balancing standpoint. You start out at a low level. Meanwhile, the aristocrats you verbally battle with are often a higher level than you are. So I found that the game could be very difficult, as each time I would try to battle someone, I would be close to losing. And losing is not a good feeling here. So I found myself getting caught in these repetitious battles where I would normally lose, get little experience from the loss, and would have to keep battling until I was either leveled up enough to win the required discourse fights, or get the money I needed to buy the upgrades I wanted. These upgrades and abilities you can get are neat. The abilities help you in discourse, and the upgrades can bolster your abilities or unlock new key topics. I will say that upgrades are hidden in a rather obtuse way, of which I didn't figure out until like 2/3 through the game by talking to the cat. Not only that, but to equip your purchased abilities can also be a bit confusing. You have to open up a menu and go to a specific tab in it. Then once you get there, you have to equip them via the shift key, which the game doesn't tell you about. I had to fumble around with my keyboard to figure that out. And while I'm on the topic, there are controls and systems that, to me, are not that well laid out. Like, to switch to which key topics you want to gossip about, you have to open an entirely separate menu and pick the topic. Kind of seems like that could be simplified a bit. My final criticism for Last Word would be that as the game went on, it felt like there was less to do. It seemed like I had gossiped as much as I could about key topics, so I just kept going to where I needed to go in order to advance the night. The endgame definitely felt like it needed more to it. But I do think the positives outweigh the negatives here. Last Word is still a fun and intriguing RPG with a neat concept, excellent characters and writing, and some great systems-driven mechanics. So, I'm thinking about giving it a final score of a low 7 out of 10. If Last Word ditched its leveling and beefed up its endgame, I could see it shining more. Regardless, if you're looking for an RPG that goes outside the norm and tries new and different things, then Last Word is more than worth your time. That concludes my review of Last Word for the PC. If you like my reviews, you can like, comment, or subscribe. I also have social media links down in the description below. as well as a link to my online portfolio, where you can see video game design works that I have done, as well as my Backloggd profile, where you can see my ratings. And with that out of the way, please make sure to have a nice day.